Hello, this is David from DN Cognitive Counseling. I got a very long question and response about one of our videos that we did a while ago on Joe Biden called Good Biden, Bad Biden. In that video, we talk a little bit about boundaries. And Jennifer wrote a very lengthy response, but very well thought out. And I really want to read it, and then I want to respond to it, because I find it to be very important for a lot of people, and I think there's going to be some interesting dialogue that can be brought up from this. Jennifer wrote, I completely agree that we need to communicate more with people about how we feel and ask questions as how they feel, and I agree that no one should be disparaged without at least one conversation first. But I also feel like in a workplace, it's completely inappropriate to ask or expect that of someone. I understand the examples you use in your video were personal, familial, and relationships. But Joe Biden's situations, they were people he worked with. Because you don't specify environments, I wanted to throw my 2 cents in. Granted, Joe Biden's situation occurred 20 years ago, and the workplace culture may have been different. But nowadays, the expectation for workplace behavior is very clear. Any employee shouldn't be put in that position or have to speak out or communicate about boundaries. The workplace environment is so diverse and everyone has different belief systems, boundaries, and ideas of appropriate behavior. That is why there are so many sexual harassment seminars, flyers, posters, and documents about acceptable workplace behavior and conduct. Employees are expected to fulfill or perform a specific duty. They are not personal relationships, and there are very different rules that apply. This may sound ridiculous or juvenile, but not everyone is comfortable communicating about feelings and boundaries. And in that environment, they shouldn't have to. It would be wonderful if everybody were comfortable expressing how they felt and asking questions about other people's comments and behaviors. But for right now, anyway, that's not the world we live in. Honestly, a workplace conversation like that might do more harm than good if the recipient of the information isn't receptive to it, and then he or she gets uncomfortable. In one's personal life, communication is absolutely key to any functional relationship. But in the workplace environment, I feel like conversations like that are completely inappropriate. Sorry about being so long-winded. I'm overly sensitive to stuff like this. First off, Jennifer, I want to thank you so much for the comment and for the thoughtful response. And I'm going to tell you that you're making a case and an ideology of something that is very important to understand. To believe that in our workplaces today that relationships are not taking place is naive. There are many people in relationships today at work. There are people that are married to their boss. And actually, I have a particular client right now who is in that exact situation. You have people that meet and date people at their place of work. You have women that hit on men. You have men that hit on women. You have men that hit on men. And you have women that hit on women. And all these things take place at work all over the country all the time. While it is true, there's a lot of information about sexual harassment. The initial contacts that take place between people, it is incredibly important to be clear about our own boundaries. You're absolutely right in saying that for people, they have difficulties with this comfort zone. I'm going to use one example that's an extreme to show my point. There was a person who was working with a colleague, and there was a sexual assault that took place. And she didn't want to report it. She didn't want to deal with it. She tried to hide from it. A couple of years later, the same person saw her in a different environment and decided he was going to do it again. And did. She again did nothing about it. She was quiet about it. She couldn't deal with it. This is not unusual behavior. The ability to speak out when sexual violence takes place, or sexual assault, or crossing boundaries is uncomfortable. It is difficult, but it's necessary. And we have to teach everybody that it's necessary in all environments. And it doesn't matter whether the person is the President of the United States, a senator, your boss, or a coworker, or a grandfather, or an uncle, or anybody else that crosses your boundary. It is incumbent upon us to be able to stand up for ourselves and to teach people that it's okay. Well, this person that I mentioned, I recently got them to make a report after many, many years. And right now, they are following up, and there will be consequences that will take place. If this person sees this person a third time, they're not going to be thinking I could just walk all over them. You see, once you speak out, once you open that up, once you say no, it puts you in an ability to be protected. But by recoiling, saying nothing, it puts you in the position where you're in a lot of trouble. Now, when I did that video, Good Biden, Bad Biden, it was in reference to the touching that was taking place where people were uncomfortable. Nothing about the recent allegations. Zero about that. And the truth is, just to mention very quickly, again, not knowing anything, whether it's true or not, because it's hard to tell at these points. But the aspect is the hypocrisy that a lot of people have when it comes to now claim based upon what they believe or don't believe, based upon whether you root for the person or not, is another form of bias, which actually brings us back to why it's so important, and I do mean so important, for you to stand up for yourself. Let's play devil's advocate, Jennifer, for a moment. Let's supposing the person that did something to you is very popular. They are on the team in a sense, very out there in the public, and people are rooting for them. And now you come out and you now are at the point where you're feeling this way, right? And you said nothing. You are going to be less likely to be believed later on because you didn't speak out immediately. Because that person and the way that they deal with things are more likely to be believed by the people that root for them. Now, if you're lucky enough to be attacked by somebody who's hated and people despise for the right reasons, then it doesn't make a difference whether you can prove anything or not. It's jump on the bandwagon. And that's hypocritical. So you have to be worried about who's doing what to you. It would be a beautiful thing if everybody can read everybody else's mind. It would be a beautiful thing if we had the rules, there's no relationships in this one place, and it's a sacred place, and nothing ever bad can happen there. But we know that's not true. We've had situations that took place in religious institutions where people that took advantage of other people in positions of power. And the point is, you don't want people to not feel that they should speak out. The aspect is them speaking out is the number one thing, that is the greatest thing we can teach people. Speak out if you're being violated in any way. When somebody touches you inappropriately, say, excuse me, I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't like that. Please don't do that again. It doesn't mean that every time it happens you need to make a federal case. But it does mean that you need to be able to set boundaries, because people do have that aspect of that feeling. You could be in the workplace and somebody goes to shake your hand and other people go, excuse me, I don't feel comfortable with a handshake. And people look at them like, why is that the case? Well, today's day and age, a little better because nobody can shake hands. But I think you understand the point. We all have to understand the nature by which we have what we do is all encompassed upon what is before us. And yes, 20 years ago, sexual harassment took place in the workplace almost everywhere. It was commonplace. And the sad part is that was the nature of, well, actually not 20 years ago, it's much longer than that, but you also get my drift. We have gotten much better, and we've gotten to educate people. But the aspect that we want to understand is that you, as the person standing up for yourself, are in the best position to protect yourself and what you're comfortable with and the boundaries that you're comfortable with. Maybe there was a woman that Joe Biden went over to and was this way with, and she was absolutely fine with it. And she appreciated it. But again, it would depend on that person. There are certain people that you can make a joke to and they get offended. And you say the same joke to somebody else and they think it's hilarious. And it depends on the person and knowing what they are. Now, do you want the person to say, well, no more humor anymore because you have to know what humor I think of beforehand? I can't say a joke. Now, if you're sensitive about a specific topic or something, you can say, excuse me, not only did I not find that funny, I found it offensive. And that's important to be able to express. And knowing that, you say, okay, I crossed a boundary and I need to stop. Or do you want to take away all humor saying, you know something, you can't make a joke because somebody's going to take offense? The question is, what world do you want to live in? I believe that personal responsibility is the best way to get to a world where more people are happy more often. I think that the aspect of teaching children and adults to stand up for themselves, to speak out, will set up a dynamic that is much better for all of us than a world where we are telling people that this is a boundary that can never happen. I don't think a world where nobody ever dates anybody at work is actually ever going to be practical. It might be an ideal, but I don't think it's practical. But again, you absolutely have every right to disagree. And I actually appreciate your opinion and your thought. But I hope that you'll listen a little bit and try to understand what I'm trying to get across and why. And in the end, why it's more protective. Because saying what the world should do, right? People shouldn't take advantage, is very nice. You have no control over that. Saying you could stand up for yourself, you have total control over. So your locus of control to do something is actually appropriate and works, as opposed to what should happen, which you already did. And the sad part is how many things have happened and how many people have suffered. Jennifer, I thank you very much for your question. I hope this was helpful, and I'd love to hear your response. So with that, I will say good night and good mental health.